Hi, everybody. How are you? Good. Thank you so much for coming out on this beautiful sunny day and into this cave. It's getting later in the day, so the sun's going down soon. You're not going to miss anything else, trust me. And we'll have you out of here in time for happy hour. So I'm Blaine Ross. I work here at the City of Beaverton Library. I'm a reference assistant, and I'm also run a storytelling program. And right over there is my partner in crime, Ann LaValle. Give her a round. She helps me keep my head on straight, which I really appreciate. And this storytelling showcase is part of the One Book One Beaverton program. Do you all know what that is? Oh, okay. Oh, we got some rookies here. Okay, well, to keep it really short, we do this every year. This is our 5th year. Everybody reads the same book. This year, the book is The Many Daughters of Afong Moy. And if you haven't read it yet, you might have trouble finding it. The program's almost over, but you can read it anytime. However, next Saturday is the author event at the Reeser. It is currently sold out. It's a free show. 550 tickets have been claimed.
That's right.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more, Ann. Let's deal with that right now.
So 550 tickets were claimed. They're complimentary tickets that you can go on the Reeser's website or call them to get a ticket. They are asking people, like they sent out an email a couple of weeks ago to say, if you're not going to use your ticket, could you please release your ticket, because there's been a lot of people want tickets. So if you're interested in going to that event, which should be really great, I've heard that he is a wonderful speaker, then you just need to check the Reeser's website in the next, up until next Saturday. There might be some tickets available there, and also you could show up the night of the show, and I think they're going to be releasing tickets then too. So.
My guess is there's a real good chance if you show up the night of the show, you're going to get in.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even if you haven't read the book, free author talk, it's going to be good. And they have beer and wine there. Not that I'm advocating anyone drink beer and wine.
And if you've never been to the Reeser, it's an amazing space.
The venue itself is worth going for. Okay, so no intermission, already said that. Bathrooms are out in the foyer. If you need to go in between tellers if you can, please. We do have a survey out there if you want to fill it out. Mostly tell us what we did wrong, what we did right, and if you want to be on an email list for future storytelling events here, put your email on there, and I'll put you on my list. We have to reschedule some events. Let's talk about that.
We did, real quick, because of the weather, we had to reschedule a couple of events for One Book One Beaverton. So there's one that's coming up next week on the history of Portland's Chinatown, which I think should be fascinating. That's on February 6th. And then almost at the end of February, or actually at the end of February, February 29th, there will be the Inherited Trauma and Psychedelic Assisted Therapies program, which I think should also be really interesting.
Will there be free samples?
That's to be determined.
Oh, ooh, that's a real hook there. There may or may not be free samples. Okay, I want to get this going here, but I really want to give some big shout-out thank yous here. First of all, Jenny Chamberlain and Ann are the ones who do this program every year. Jenny's not here tonight, but please give them a big round of applause. We couldn't do it without them. I want to thank all my coworkers because they're amazing and they help me get this done. And also, Emma Jones, our publicist, is right there. She does all the publicity for the library, and she's amazing. Yes.
Yeah.
And then the Friends of the Beaverton City Library are the ones who pay for all of this. So they're a really important partner, as are the Reeser, who's also letting us use the space. And then I want to shout out to Back Fence Storytelling, Portland Storytellers Guild, Beaverton Community Theater, and the Book Corner as well. So there'll be some free giveaways tonight. If you haven't got a raffle ticket, make sure you get one at the end of the show. We'll turn the lights on and draw the numbers. Am I missing anything, Ann? That's everything on the list, right?
I think that's everything.
Okay. I had something about artificial intelligence and the fact that it got the name of the book author wrong, and then it had this really, maybe I'll just read the apology real quick. It's worth it. So I was looking for a playlist for the show, and the Chat GPT got the author wrong, and it turns out it doesn't. It's like a year behind and everything. So we said to it, kind of at the end of this big argument, you didn't know who the author of the book was, so you just made it up? Better to just admit you don't know something than to fabricate something. That's the human way, right? That was Jenny's worry. And then the response was, I appreciate your feedback and I apologize for any confusion caused by the error. It was not my intention to fabricate information. My responses are generated based on patterns learned from diverse data sources, and sometimes errors or inaccuracies can occur. When faced with uncertainty, it is indeed better to acknowledge that I don't have the specific information rather than provide potentially incorrect details. Thank you for pointing out the mistake, and I'm here to assist you with any other questions or information you might need. So at least it was polite. All right. Sorry, I just had we were astounded when we ran into that. Okay, so we got to talk a little bit about the rules. They're very loosey-goosey. Within reason. We got a rattle. Let's shake the rattle to kind of scare the tellers a little bit. Whoa, that's the big rattle. Start with the small rattle. Tell them what they, yeah.
Sorry, well, you said to scare them.
Okay.
Okay.
Scare them with the small one. Okay, yeah. We got to give that back to children's. They don't even know it's missing. So if they go too long, we're going to shake the rattle, but I guarantee you we're not going to shake the rattle. So, but we want them to know that it's out there, because they're all really experienced. They know about this time thing. Frayn doesn't look too nervous. You don't look too nervous. So anyway, that's about it for the rules, right? Yeah.
I think you covered it.
Okay. All right, our first teller, Brian Parker and his wife Josie are members of the Beaverton community. Aside from being busy foster parents, they have a publishing company that focuses on promoting imagination, inspiration, and positive thinking for kids and adults. Yeah. Brian spends his time teaching the creative process along with writing and illustrating books for everyone. They were recently featured in an award-winning documentary short called Believe in Wonder. I've seen it. It's great. You have to see it. You can see it on the web. You can find it on YouTube. Please join me in welcoming Brian to the stage.
I thought about doing an amazing pratfall right there on the stairs, but my birthday was the day before yesterday, and my 44-year-old body is slowly breaking down. So that might have been the end of me, totally, okay? Thank you for having me. Thank you for this amazing opportunity to get to talk to you guys. I'm going to warn you. I am probably going to float into the space of metaphysical here. I was thinking about this ever since Blaine invited me, and honestly, I got a little pretentious, when I was thinking about what I was going to present today. I mean, let's just say the day before yesterday, literally my topic was, God is the storyteller. How pretentious does that sound? I swear, it's too big. It's too big. I am going to go the other route. I am going to kind of whittle this down and make it a little bit more human and more grounded. You guys okay with that? Yeah. All right, yes. Follow me for more of the bigger God is the storyteller, thing for future reference. I have loved stories my whole life. As a kid, my primary source of engagement and enjoyment was lying to people. I lied to people a lot. I mean, it was kind of a problem, And I talk to kids a lot. Since I write children's books and I get a chance to engage with young audiences, they love hearing that, strangely enough. It was I was a huge liar. I used to make up stuff, just wild, unnecessary, never stories that tried to get me out of trouble, always stories that I was trying to engage somebody in some kind of like back and forth, because story is about connection. I will not regale you of the worst lie that I ever told. Well, now that I've said it that way, I have to tell you, right? Okay, so second grade, Mrs. Green's class, I forgot my show and tell item. Yeah, worst thing ever, right? Because that's your moment to shine. That's your moment to have everybody's attention. I forgot it. Brand new transformer, left it on the kitchen table. So when it came my turn and my teacher was like, do you have anything to share? I was like, I'm sorry, I left it at home because there was a huge fire at my dad's job. And she was like, what? And all the other kids are like, really, 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 what happened, what happened, what happened? And I'm like, oh, my father worked at Unical, it was a giant plant. And I was like, oh, this morning there was a huge explosion and my dad had to run back and forth into the building. He saved person after person. They were like, oh my God, your father's a hero. And I'm like, oh yeah, it was terrible. And at one point, he was carrying two guys, one on each shoulder. There was a dog. He had to save the dog. All the kids totally engaged. And I'm eating it up. It's like peanut butter out of the jar, just with the spoon. You know, it's just decadent and terrible. But at the end, I didn't know how to wrap the story up. So my teacher's like, how did it end? How's your dad? How'd it go? And I went as dark as I possibly could. I was like, oh, well, he saved everybody, but the last person, he ran in there and there was another explosion and nobody knows what happened. My entire second grade class, bawling, just eyes just watering everywhere, whimpers, and I was just elated. I'm a nice person, but in that moment, I was a criminal. So, of course, my teacher, Mrs. Green, who was the sweetest, hippie beatnik you've ever met in your entire life, called my mother to give her condolences. And my mom was like, I just took my husband to lunch. He's fine. I've never gotten in so much trouble in my entire life. I will not tell you the aftermath, which I'm sure you got a pretty clear picture. But from that moment, I understood that I am a storyteller, just in my heart. And I think that, especially when you're young and you connect with that thing that is intrinsically and kind of core you, it shapes every other thing in your life. My mother is a devout Christian. I grew up on the stories from the Bible, and she was never a great reader, but the Bible, she read that hardcore. I grew up with those stories. My father, on the other hand, was a bit of an intellectual, considered himself intellectual. He would read things like James Clavell's Shogun or Frank Herbert's Dune, and he was always reading stuff that was about these kind of grand empires and all the things that you inherit from that. So I'm a little bit of both of my parents. It's grandiose and also kind of grounded in a spirituality. But what I did learn from my parents isn't something that they intrinsically taught me. It was something that I learned by watching them and also the things that they did and that they didn't do. I learned that, well, actually it's three things. We are made of stories. I mean, it's in your DNA, literally. I am equal parts Jonah and the whale as I am Frodo climbing, Mount Doom and Sam pushing him along the way. I am equal parts my father taking me on fishing trips as I am Mr. Toad on the wild ride, These things become part of who you are. You internalize them. The power of stories is that it does that. The problem is that very often we lose track of what our interpretation of our personal story is. Okay? So, three things I learned. we are made of stories. Your story matters, and that no one can define for you what your story means, okay? So I'll break that down for you. As far as we're made of the stories, everything that I ever read has become a part of who I am right now, okay? I am Ged from The Wizard of Earthsea. I am the characters from Frances Hodges Burnett's The Secret Garden, which was the first time I read a book and cried, you know? See? I'm telling you. And those things live inside of me, and they kind of inform who I am as a person today. I found that even the stories that I was making up as a kid, all those wild lies, all of those outlandish stories, they were actually me trying to communicate to someone else who I knew I was, you know? I wasn't necessarily that kid from California that moved to Alaska and lived with his folks out in the woods. I was a hero. I was someone on an adventure, all right? And I knew that deep down inside. Now, middle school. Middle school is the crucible. This is where the rubber meets the road. No, literally. I mean, it was a horror show, absolute horror show. It's the one time in your life where the stories that you tell yourself that define you, all right, suddenly those mean less than the stories other people tell you about yourself, right? Middle school was when suddenly that stuff became real, you know? We had moved from Alaska down to Meridian, Mississippi, and I'm not sure if you're aware, but Alaska and Meridian, Mississippi are significantly different. Have you ever had culture shock so bad that you physically felt ill? Okay, imagine that over the course of years. Yeah, my parents wanted to get reconnected with our roots, so that's what we did. And Mississippi was hardcore, you know. Suddenly, all of the things that defined me as a person, all the stories that I had told myself about who I am, suddenly were in question, all right? Suddenly I was awkward. I was large. I was black. I was a little too smart and a little too outspoken. All of those things became negatives, things that I had spent my whole life thinking that those were just intrinsic parts of who I was. So, yeah. For anyone here who also still suffers the wounds of middle school, I see you. I see you, okay? But life continues, right? And my storyteller soul won out, I can honestly say. Then adulthood comes. And then suddenly realities start hitting you. And then the stories that you have that define you as a person, they're suddenly challenged again. I married young. I met my wife when she was 16 and I was 17. And I knew right away, I was like, oh my God, she's just the best. And sadly, most of the things that I told her were kind of lies then too. I'm still getting over it. It's a problem. I understand. Okay? But when you're married young, people tell you, it's not going to last. You guys did it too early. We have now, in March, been married 23 years. You know? And so much of that is just because the story that people told me, I was like, that's not our story. That's not going to be us, all right? As the storyteller of your life, you get to define what those elements that happen to you, what they mean. After we were married, we dealt with infertility issues. So the family that we decided that we had wanted, that we desperately needed, wasn't going to happen. We were like, no, that's not a roadblock to be in a family. That's an interesting detour onto this amazing adventure of family, and then we became foster parents, which it's a crazy detour. There's so many bumps. Oh my God. And there's like arrow slits on the side and people are shooting at you the whole time. But now, after many years, we fostered 12 kids and we adopted 2. So our boys, Victor and Kamari, are 9 and 6. And they drive us crazy all the time. I asked for smart kids. I didn't know what the hell that meant. So, once again, you are your own storyteller. And as a person who writes and puts books out into the world, I realize that the moment I let go of it, the moment I put it in the hands of a reader, it's not mine anymore. Their interpretation of it is their own. My interpretation of it is my own. And it's the same thing when it comes to our personal stories. We can never let someone else's interpretation of our life's journey override what we think of it. If you see yourself as Mary Poppins landing on the roof of your neighbor's house to bring them joy and order, that's who you are. If you see yourself as the lion Aslan creating all of the world of Narnia, that's who you are. So remember that as your own personal storyteller, you get to define what your life is and what it will mean. That's it for me.
Thank you, Brian. Spoken like a true author. And I have to ask, didn't you think as a second grader that teacher was going to fact check you? That's a bold lie. Very bold. I didn't have those kind of chops for sure. Thanks so much. That was great. So our next teller is Darshanpreet Gill. She's a science teacher at McDaniel High School in Portland. She is well loved by her students. She says, I quote, "You can't really judge someone's behavior because you don't know their backstory," she says. "I always try to be kind first and learn, and that's what just made me a better person." One of her classes is in biomedical innovations, and it teaches real-life skills and how to handle the kinds of emergencies we will face in a natural disaster. So in other words, she's a hero, training future heroes, and she's a teacher. Give her a round of applause right now. Mouthy, loud, opinionated, stubborn girls are her favorite types of students to teach. In her own words, she loves a bad bitch. She won the best dressed teacher at McDaniel, although she said the bar was quite low. She's also a skilled baker. She specializes in layer cakes, and she's appeared a number of times on stages all over Portland. Please welcome Darshanpreet Gill.
That was really, I want to say some of that stuff I sent in, but I didn't send in like my students love me because I would be so pretend, and the kids think I'm great. So some of that was research. Hi. First of all, are there any of you who are the eldest daughter in your family? Oh, I already knew that. So if you don't already know, I'm going to give you a life hack. If you don't want to have to weed through mediocrity and you just want to go right to the top, just go for an eldest daughter. Like, if you're hiring, if you're looking for a life partner, whatever. Because we have a very specific skill set. The ability to walk into any room appropriately and on time, assess the situation, and immediately, without being told, start meeting needs. We can't help ourselves. It's what we've been trained to do. We've been moms since before we had kids. And if you are the eldest daughter of an immigrant family, that's like a whole nother layer. If at the age of 8, You've not had the experience of translating for your auntie at the doctor when the doctor asks, when was the last time you had sexual intercourse? And then you ask, and then your auntie tells you, and then you look at your uncle different, because you're like, really? Okay. Like, the emotional resilience you have to have, because you're simultaneously someone's child, and you don't get to have a say, but you are also the one that speaks English, and the one that was born here, and the one that understands the culture, so you have to be a leader and a follower, right? You have to be in charge, but also not. You have to accept that you are capable enough to hold things that are beyond your age, but don't get ahead of yourself because someone will smack you. And being raised that way is very confusing. And I know this is universal. It's not just if you're the kid of immigrants. I see it in girls all the time. I'm a high school teacher, and it's one of those things where you grow up knowing that your competence is relied on to be a problem solver, but you can never be the problem because you're the good one, right? Anytime you start to act up and have a need, all of a sudden, like, your mom gets a little teary, but you're the one I can rely on, not like your sister, you know? Oh, not like your little brother. Oh, you're always my good girl. And you're like, okay, that is the priority. Never upset mom. Always be the good girl. And so you start making decisions, not because that's what you want, but because that's the thing that's going to get you in the least trouble and make sure everyone is the happiest with you. Because everyone's happiness is tied to your feeling of safety and value in that family. But as so happens, eventually you start to get old enough to be like, this is kind of bullshit, right? And I think, as every eldest daughter knows, you have that breaking point where you're like, I'm going to do something wild right now. You know, like, because if I ruin this expectation of me, then I don't have to be beholden to it. And we all go through those chaos years, and if we haven't, maybe you're still going to go through them, which, great for you, have fun. But as we're going through it, one of the things that I discovered, and that maybe some of you know too, is I like being helpful, though. I like being relied on. I like knowing that I can come in and keep calm and handle a situation. But I like people acknowledging that too. I like doing it, but not because it's an expectation, right? I like doing it because I'm good at it. It makes me feel good. But I need you to know it's a choice I'm making because of my love for you. Not because that's what it takes to be a good girl, and not because I need your approval to be good anymore. It just feels good to do it. And so now, as I've started to get older, I have started to calm myself into the realization that I do like that part of me, but I don't always like the way it's expected. And to figure out that middle ground when you teach high school girls is a real delight. Because I do not have kids. I don't want them. I've been asked, I always get like, oh, you'd be such a good mom. Like, I would be a great mom. I don't want to have children. I like being able to do whatever I want to do when I want to do it. And if I had kids, it would be inappropriate to live that way. That's it. And then people are like, what? She just said something really honest. I don't know what to do with that. I'm like, that's it, right? But because I am such a natural caretaker, being a teacher is a great fit for me. And when I started to realize that I was like trying to figure out how to be myself in the world, but not be angry at who I'm expected to be in the world, that's right around when I started teaching. And I remember I had the students decorate their own notebooks. And my first year as a teacher, I had this student, Araceli, and on the cover of her notebook, she had written, sorry to anyone who I haven't offended yet, I will get to you shortly. And I was just like instantly in love with this child. I was like, the audacity to just come out that bold day one and just make it known, right? And I was still figuring out how to be myself in a way where I wasn't worried about offending people, but I also wasn't scared to do it if it felt right. But she was already there, right? And I was just like, oh my goodness, like this is the sort of bad bitch energy I want to be around. And the way I would hype this girl up and the way she would caretake me, the adult in the room, and she'd be like, you can't let those kids talk to you like that. And I'd be like, you're right, I can't let those thank you, right? And like she would whip around in her seat and she's like, if you don't shut up, like, and like the kids were like, and like every year I've been a teacher, it's been really interesting because I'm supposed to be the one that's teaching, right? But you of course end up being the one that's learning too, because it's like this weird like reparenting of your inner child bullshit that I always made fun of but is actually real. And I remember when I taught middle school, there was this student I had named Hadan, whose name is a little bit hard for people. My name's Darshanpreet, which is a little bit hard for people. And like, I always like let people give me nicknames and stuff. And she was like, no, you know what my mom says? You should have complicated names for your daughter so people have to earn the right to talk to them. And I was like, right? And I'm just like, yes, ma'am. You know, like it's this like little 8th grader. And now I've been teaching for just over 10 years, and I have to say, like, one of the greatest delights is recognizing in my students myself and seeing, like, the things that you don't notice unless you are an eldest daughter or just a woman yourself, where if the room is chaos and messy, you know who naturally starts picking everything up without ever being told? Girls. 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 You know who never even notices the mess that they made? Boys. There are exceptions, though. I have seen some of the boys, so just start, I'm like, who raised you? And they're like, oh, you know my grandma. I'm like, there you are. There you are, right? I have this one period that's all like athletic boys. They all like wrestling and football, and they are so respectful, right? Like anytime I need, oh, Miss Gill, I'll get it. And so I was just like, all right, I have to ask everyone, who raised each mom, auntie, grandma, you know, I'm like, right? And I was like, I want you all to go home and tell those competent women that I feel very cared for and respected in this space, and they did a great job. And all the boys are like, you know? They're just like, oh, I love it. And now I found that because I'm no longer the one being raised, I'm the one that's raising them in a weird way, which I did not expect to be a part of being a teacher, but it is. I noticed that a lot of the girls like really light up when I see the thing about them that they're proud of, but other people just expect. So whenever a girl comes in and just starts like picking, I'm like, look at you taking care of your community, just coming in quiet and picking up. Oh, what an angel. What a great way to show your love. You know, you don't have to if you don't want to, but I noticed it, and they're just like sweet little quiet. And then there's, of course, my favorite, the loudmouth ones. They're like, who did not teach you how to clean up this space? I swear, Miss Gill, these boys have no home training in this. And I'm just like, you're right, ma'am. Go ahead and let them know. And the more I'm around them, the more like, I know it sounds so corny, but it like eases all of this stuff that I've built up in myself through anger and resentment of all the ways that I was forced to be, but I also kind of wanted to be, and it all got tied up together. And now I just feel like I get to have these conversations with these young women who are still figuring out, you know, who they're going to be in this world. And like they will look up to me, and the pressure of that I take very, very seriously. And so part of it is just trying to make sure that they understand that if you want to grow up to be a 39-year-old unmarried spinster, where your whole family is like trying to figure out if you're kind of a skank or a lesbian or both, like if you want to just revel in having your own home and doing things the way you want to do and sleeping in and not prioritize some of the things that you had to do to be happy and successful, and you thought there was something wrong with you because you didn't want those, like, it's okay. And if you also want to pursue those things, like caretaking other people, right? To be able to read a room, to be able to be empathetic and make that a part of your life, that's okay too. And to just create that space where they can talk freely and I can learn, and I can talk freely and they can learn has been such a gift. And as of maybe 2 weeks ago, I have this little group of bad bees who are like, Miss Gill, on Thursdays, can we just have lunch together so we can have a safe space to talk about how great we are? And I was like, yes. And so we took over the conference room in the main office, and we got in, and like all the girls are like going on, I take care of my brother, I pick up and I do this, and I translate this. And I was like, wait, how many of you are the eldest daughter? Every single girl raised her hand. And I was like, of course, of course. So for any of you in here who are also the eldest, and this has really resonated with you, I just want to leave you with, you are as great as you think you are. It is fine to let people who don't understand that know. And if anyone gives you praise for it, don't fake any humility. Be a bad bitch. Be like, yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Fantastic job. That was, wow. I don't know. Okay, first of all, men are bastards. I'm one, I can say it. But wow, I think McDaniel High School is pretty damn lucky is what I think. And you're a mother to a lot of people, it sounds like. So thank you so much. Okay, I think it's fair to say that Travis Abels is a bit of a Renaissance man. He's a film editor, photographer, actor, performance artist, and a storyteller who seems to be completely captivated by the audio experience and storytelling. He's been involved in a number of projects that explore this aspect of the human experience, including a collaborative project to design and build a piano puppet, which is a piano that connects people and music in a truly unique way. He also designed, built, raced, and wrecked a soapbox derby car that looked like a giant nose. Although he crashed in the final turn, his team took home the People's Choice Award at the 2012 Red Bull Soapbox Derby in Los Angeles. Based on his Instagram feed, he also seems to be, dare I say, a bit of a provocateur. Take a look at his website. He has several intriguing projects that have happened and are still going on, and some in the works. He was concerned he might go a little bit long, and so we'll maybe use the little rattle if we have to. But we won't interrupt unless there's no end in sight. Please welcome Travis Abels.
So I love my dad, and I'm 6, and I really want to be like my dad, but I'm not. My dad is strong, for instance. Like, he's got these massive hands, like baseball gloves, and like one of my first memories is he's in the garden, and he's just like ripping out these gnarled roots and like small trees with his bare hands, like they're Kleenexes, like doo, 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 doo. And me, I've got these like little breadsticks for fingers, and so when I'm around him, I keep him in my pockets because, you know, I don't want him to see that I'm weak. But he can kind of sense this, and he'll take my hand and he'll squeeze it. And this tells 6-year-old me that I'm safe and that everything's going to be okay, even if it's not. It's going to be okay. My dad's also really fun. Like, he eats ice cream with almost every meal. That's insane. Like, if you're north of 10 years old and you eat that much ice cream, you should be dead, you know? And he's like, I don't think I'd call him funny, but he thinks like so many things are funny that are just objectively not funny. Like, I saw him laugh at a crow. Not a funny bird. It's like the most serious bird there is. But still this thing's like, ah, and he laughs. It's like tremendous drunk tuba of a laugh, and it makes me laugh, and I love this about him. But the thing I admire about him most is his conviction. Like, he believes in his religion so much that it makes me want to believe. And like, he sits me down and he says, Travis, the cool thing about our religion is, when you die, you go to heaven. And son, I'm gonna far outlive you, but when I die, I'm gonna have the joy of watching you from heaven. Like, you're gonna be able to see me from heaven? He's like, yeah. And I'm gonna watch you with pride and joy. And he calls me his pride and joy, which is everything to me. So I follow his rules and I pray his prayers, and things are going great. Until around 12, this new feeling shows up. Yeah, you've had it too, it sounds like. Yeah. Sometimes, like, if I see someone in a bathing suit or just for no reason at all, this feeling, a bit like a can of Sprite that's been shaken and is opening inside of me, and it's terrifying because I should also mention my dad is not just a believer, he's the preacher of what some might call an apocalyptic doomsday cult. I just noticed church, and there he preaches that even imagining anything to do with sex before marriage with someone in the church, that's not just a sin, it could also land you in hellfire. So when these feelings show up, I push them down under the most horrific images I can think of, like this cute little squirrel, and it's getting run over by a lawnmower, and its cute little squirrel head is shooting across and down the side of the house, and it works. Until one night I'm with my family and we're watching their favorite show, Highway to Heaven, and this commercial comes on. See, Kmart is cutting prices. And to illustrate this, people are dressed up in these skin-tight, red latex bodysuits, and their legs, meant to represent the blades, they're opening and closing across the screen, cutting $5.99 into $4.99. There's that feeling. And again, horrific image machine, dinosaurs, okay, yeah. They're looking up at this wave of asteroids. They're it's exploding into walls of fire, just melting the flesh from their bones, and it doesn't work. So I run out of the living room up the 17 steps to my upstairs room, and I close the door behind me. And if you're like me and you don't have a lock on the door, take a chair. You wedge it underneath the handle. Now you're safe. Now, even though you've tried really hard to resist, maybe just for a second you could check out this new feeling. And so begins the new chapter of my life, where I spend all of my free time just tucked behind this chair on the door, and my folks start to wonder, where's Travis? Has he developed a passion for the outdoors? Is he riding his bike? I'm just hanging out behind this chair, getting to know my new best friend. And we're hitting it off. And tonight, I'm gonna just set the scene. It's a beautiful summer night. The stars are out. There's this harvest moon that's spilling through the window, just casting this dull amber glow from my bare 12-year-old body. Now we're picturing my 12-year-old body, so we're in this together, and there's a slam at the door. Great thing about this chair, it works. It stops the door, but only at the handle, and the top is flimsy and bows in, giving precious mother a perfect little glimpse of her only son bathed in moonlight. Back arched at the moment when a feeling becomes more than a feeling. Outside, a crow pauses in mid-flight. And there's a shriek before my door springs back into place, catapulting dear mother down the hall, and the silence is shattered with the sound of her bare feet racing down the stairs, across the kitchen tiles to my father's office. And I lay here for a few lifetimes, just figuring out like how I'm gonna grab my sheets, turn them into a knapsack, which precious items I'll take with me as I slide open the window, never to return. And then I get this overwhelming sense that something is watching me from above. And so I tiptoe out of my room, downstairs, across the kitchen tiles, into my father's office. And inside, Dad avoids eye contact. Mom cries, and I make a promise to never, ever, ever again masturbate. And I don't. That's my story. Thank you so much. That would be insane. Of course I do. But I try really, really hard. And I succeed for 49 days and nights. Yeah. Until, again, I see that fucking Kmart commercial. And from that point on, I began to hide parts of myself from Dad. And the distance between him and the real me grows. And 10 years later, hiding has gotten easier because I move 2,000 miles away to the West Coast, and I start to bend, I start to break more of these rules that I grew up with. Like I eat pork, I celebrate Halloween, I indulge in sexy time feelings. And with every forbidden door I open, there's this world of thrill. But there's also this black sinkhole in my chest that grows with each lie of omission. And when my dad calls, he tells me about home. He tells me about the church, about his garden, about Highway to Heaven. He's just watched it for the 9th time all the way through. And I want to tell him about this new plant I've discovered that when I smoke it, crows. I get it, Dad. Crows are hilarious. I want to tell him about Paisley, this cute vegetarian that I'm just falling batshit bonkers in love with. But Paisley doesn't go to church. She definitely doesn't go to the church. And lately, either do I. So I don't tell him these things. I don't want him to have to worry for my soul. And again, the distance between us grows. And so does this pitch black sinkhole in me. And it grows into this vortex. It just pulls in more and more of my life, my voice, my authenticity, my relationship with Paisley. And after the breakup, I'm lying face down on the floor of the kitchen, and I decide it's time to go home and tell Dad who I really am. That as much as I would love it, we're not the same. And I book a red eye. But when I get home, the house is empty. And at the bottom of the stairs, there's blood on the tiles. He got up in the middle of the night, and he took a wrong step, and he fell 17 steps, and he landed on his head. And at the hospital, in the ICU, he's on this bed with 100 tubes pouring out of him, and I grab his hand. It's like baseball glove of a hand, and I squeeze it. I want him to know he's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay, even if it's not. It's going to be okay. And his hand doesn't squeeze back because he's been paralyzed from the neck down. But there's hope. A few weeks later, his right index finger flickers to life. And this little 1-inch motion is everything. It's home. It's him in the garden and laughing at crows and Highway to Heaven. And over the next few months, it just goes downhill. And little by little, Dad slips away. His eyes are pretty much never open. And when they are, there's no one home. And tonight, I'm in his room at the hospice. And it's just him and me. And I want to remember everything. I remember these fuzzy eyebrows that just he could never tame. They're always and this goofy nose that barely worked, he snored like a maniac. and these hands. I take it in mine, and it's way thinner now, but it still seems strong. And I see that it actually looks almost just like my hand. It's like exactly like we have the same hands. We have the same hands. Like how much of us is the same that we just never even realized. And after the funeral, I go back to LA, and I really miss Dad, so I start looking for Highway to Heaven, but it's not on Netflix, it's not on HBO, it's not on fucking Crackle. It's so like, I'm not proud about this, but I hop on a pirating site to download it, and this pop-up ad flashes on my screen. It's two people in red skin-tight latex bodysuits. They are scissoring. And there's that feeling. After I walked to the bathroom, and I feel like I can be honest with you, it was more of like a penguin walk, because my pants are around my ankles, and I trip. And my head grazes the sharp concrete edge of my bathtub. And on the floor, my first thought is, if I fell like 1 inch to the right, and weeks later the police found my body and they called my parents, would they also report what was still playing on my computer screen? And it hits me, Dad's not there to receive that call. I'm safe. Dad, thank you.
Thank you, Travis. I don't even know what to say. There's no trigger warnings here, but you're all pretty lucky you heard that. So our next teller, I'm going to warn you right now, he's from Australia, but regrettably, he's lost a lot of his accent. I know. I asked him if he could embellish a bit, and he's like, oh, my parents say I sound like an American now. So he's been an actor, storyteller, comedian, and performance artist who's been regaling audiences all over the world for the last 20 years. He was supposed to be here last year, and then he got a better gig, and he split on me, but he guaranteed me he'd be back, and here he is. So he's following through on his word. True Australian. The awards and accolades are too numerous to mention, really. There's so many on his site. So much winning, Jon. So much winning. He has a number of one-hour shows, including one that describes the many ways his dad has died, more than once. Most of these shows you can see on YouTube, but of course they're going to be better live. And you'll have to tell us if you're going to get any performances coming up. You can find out much more about him on the web, and luckily we have him with us this afternoon. He calls Portland home now because his wife is from here, and we're lucky to have him here. Please welcome Jon Bennett.
Jesus, g'day, mates. How you fucking going? Maybe that's how I do it, but what a show so far. I mean, I don't know how to follow any of you guys. This is fucking ridiculous. Sorry, I'm swearing a lot already. Okay, so I'm going to keep with the theme and tell you a story about my dad. So I grew up on a tiny little farm out in the outback of Australia with my 3 older brothers, and I'm the youngest, so deal with that. My 3 older brothers and my mum and my dad. And when I was about, we had a little pig farm. A pig farm, and it was one of those sort of battery pig farms where the pigs are only allowed to stand up and sit down in these little pens. And when I was 6 years old, I snuck out of bed in the middle of the night, and I ran up to the pig shed, and I set free all of the pigs. And then I ran back home, I jumped in my bed, and this wasn't any sort of animal liberation thing or anything like that. I was a 6-year-old kid. I just thought that there'd be a pig driving the tractor, there'd be a pig doing the dishes in the morning, there'd be pigs everywhere. And I woke up to my dad shaking me awake, and he took me up to the pig shed, and none of the pigs had moved. All of them just stayed in their pens, none of them went anywhere, and my dad just said, "See, they want to be here." And then he said a thing he'll say many times in our relationship: "I hope you've learned something." And this is the sort of man my dad was. He's a very serious and stern man. And me and my brother, we had to work with him on the farm, on the pig farm, every single day. But he's one of these men. He had a hand in everything we did. And so Dad wasn't just a pig farmer. He was also my school teacher. And I don't mean a teacher at my school. I mean my fucking teacher. So I saw him every single day, and the only joy I got out of Dad being my teacher is every morning all the kids would be sitting on the carpet. Dad would walk into the classroom, and he'd say, "Good morning, class," and in unison all the kids would sing, "Good morning, Mr. Bennett," and I got to say, "Good morning, Dad," and then I'd look at the other kids and laugh, and they hated my fucking guts for this reason. And even then, my dad, the serious man, he would say, "You do not call me Dad when we're at school. You call me Mr. Bennett like every other kid. You were just another kid at school," so I had to call my own dad Mr. Bennett. So I saw him every single day at school, and then I had to work with him on the pig farm as well after that. But Dad wasn't just my school teacher either. He was also the bus driver. So he'd pick us up from our house, drive us to school, teach us at school, and even then, we'd be waiting out the front of the house, the bus would pull up, Dad would say, "Welcome to the bus, young man, find your seat safely." I go, "Dad, fuck, it's me, it's John, you know who I am." There's still no special treatment. You're picking me up from our house, no special treatment, just another kid at school. And so all I had were weekends. Weekends were my respite from Dad, and on Sundays, me and my family would go to church. Dad was the minister at the local church. And even then, he'd shake all our hands, and we'd go off to Sunday school, and he'd say, "Did you enjoy the sermon, young man?" I go, "Dad, it's me, it's John," but still no special treatment, just another kid going off to Sunday school. So all I had was Saturdays. Saturdays were my times off from Dad. And all you do when you grow up in rural South Australia on Saturdays is play sports. Dad was my football coach, my basketball coach, my tennis coach, my cricket coach. He was everything in my life, this man. And he's a very serious man. He also says he's never said a swear word in his entire life. Now, can any of us say we've never said a swear word? No, we're normal people. There's a great way to release frustration and anger. And Dad gets very frustrated and very angry, but he says he's never said a swear word in his entire life. And I'm not kidding, I've seen him. He always has the same thing. He'll say there are other words you can use, and there's no need for that kind of language. And I'm not kidding, I've seen him walk around the back of the car at nighttime and hit his shin so fucking hard on the tow bar of the car that he just dropped to his knees, looked up at the moon, raised his fists and just yelled, "Curses!" He yells curses. Like a Scooby-Doo villain, he yells curses. These are the other words. He doesn't even call them farts, he calls them blow-offs. He's supposed to make farts unfunny for every kid in the world. And the other thing he does instead of swearing is he just screams his feelings. So he'll be out working on the farm and we'll just hear this, "I'm angry, I'm annoyed, I'm upset." He just screams his feelings. That's what he does instead of swearing. He's a strange man to grow up with. And when I turned 18 years old, farm life wasn't for me. I moved to the city, I studied the arts, and I became a vegetarian. And I kept this a secret from my parents. That's really sacrilegious to be the son of a pig farmer and be a vegetarian. You're really going against the family there. And I became this vegetarian, and then during this time, my second oldest brother, Alf, moved to a place called Kangaroo Island. That is a real place that exists. It's a little island off the coast of South Australia. And my brother moves there, and my dad loves Kangaroo Island. He's never been anywhere else in the world, never been on a plane, never gone anywhere. He's not coming to visit me, none of this. He doesn't go anywhere because he's got the same excuse. Why do I need to go anywhere? Kangaroo Island is right there. And I'll say to him things like, Dad, I've been to Japan and places like that. I've seen Japanese people on Kangaroo Island. Why do I need to go anywhere else in the world? And he visits my brother every single weekend, and of course he's my dad. He managed to get a job on Kangaroo Island as the minister at the local church on the Sunday, and it's university holidays, and I go to visit my brother on this island. It's this beautiful natural wonderland. And we go to church on the Sunday, Dad as the minister. After church, he shakes my hand and said, "You enjoy the sermon, young man?" I said, "Come on, Dad, I'm fucking 19 years old now, but still, no special treatment, just another kid at church." And then he gets this other job after church every Sunday, going hunting with these local farmers and these hunters, hunting these wild pigs, which are only introduced species on Kangaroo Island. And after church, he says, "Do you want to come hunting with me?" And I say, "Oh, no, I don't need to do that." And he says, just want to come check it out. It's in this beautiful national park. It's the best part of Kangaroo Island. So I say, okay, I'll go and check out this national park. And so we drive to this park. We park this truck out the front. There's a big shed out the side of this national park. I walk into the shed, and there's all these farmers and hunters just loading up these trucks with guns and then driving off hunting these wild pigs. And Dad says again, are you sure you don't want to come hunting with me? And I say, no, I don't want to do that. And he says, okay, I'll organize for a ride back to your brother's house. But before you do, just help me load up this truck with guns. And Dad hands me a gun. Now, I don't know if you've ever held a gun before. I mean, I'm in the US now. You're all probably holding right now. But they're hard to get in Australia. I've never felt a gun, and I feel the weight of this gun, and this weird sense of power comes over me. And I think, oh, I want to shoot this gun. I want to shoot a gun. I want to shoot a gun. And I say, Dad, I'm going to come hunting. And he says, great. And then Dad and I, we load up this truck with guns, and we drive off through this national park. We park the truck, and for the next 3 hours, Dad and I go hunting these wild pigs. During this 3 hours, Dad shoots 6 wild pigs. I shoot none. I enjoy looking through the scope at things far away. I like jumping out of the bushes and pretending to shoot things. I'm having a really good time. And Dad keeps thinking I'm going to shoot something when I'm not, because I'm sort of just messing around, and he's getting very annoyed with me because he's screaming I'm annoyed. And he says, look, you're annoying me. Do you want to shoot something? And I say, no, Dad, I'm having a really good time. I feel like I'm in Predator or something. I put mud under my eyes, and I'm skulking through the bush. And Dad says, no, I'm going to find you something to shoot. And he disappears off through these trees. And he comes back about 10 minutes later, and he whispers, I found you something. And I follow him through these trees. He tells me to look through the bushes through my scope, and I look through my scope, and I see a pig. And it is a big pig. And it is just laying in some mud. And it has a bunch of little babies just running around and suckling to its teats. And I'm looking at this sleeping mother pig, and Dad just whispers in my ear, it's easy. And I say, I know it's easy, Dad, but this is a little bit fucked, don't you think? And he says, there's no need for that language. I'm looking at this pig, and I think I can't do this. And Dad says, it's easy, you're helping. They're a pest, they're an introduced species, they ruin the environment for the local flora and fauna, you can do this. And I say to Dad, do I have to shoot the babies as well? And he goes, no, just shoot the mum, they'll die by themselves. I'm looking at this pig for what feels like forever. And then I think, no, man up, you can do this. And I get the pig's head in my sights, I close my eyes, and I pull the trigger. When I open my eyes, I see Dad's back in front of me. And I see him just drop to the right. And I have just shot Dad in the back. And I drop the gun in shock as Dad swings around and grabs himself by the chest. Blood starts coming out from between his fingers. His eyes are wide. He's staring at me dead in the face, and he just says, you fucking shot me! And it's the first time he's ever said a swear word. He just unleashes this tirade of abuse. He says, you fucking shot me. I am fucking dead. Do you know where we are? We're in the middle of nowhere. I am fucking dead. You have fucking killed me. And secretly in the back of my brain, I want to go, there's no need for that language, but I don't say anything. I'm in shock. I've dropped the gun, and Dad just continues with this tirade of abuse. He just says, I can't believe it's you. Out of all of my sons, you're the one who kills me. The vegetarian. Tim is in jail. My brother Tim's in jail, but that's a different show. Tim is in jail, and you're the son who kills me. And he pulls out his phone, he throws his phone at me and says, call mum, tell her you've killed me and I'm dead. And I get his phone, I dial emergency 911, I'm not an idiot. I say, I've just shot my dad, and they say, where are you? And I say, Kangaroo Island. And they say, we need you to be a bit more specific than that. And I say, I don't know, we're in a national park, people hunt pigs here, and they say, we think we know where you are. There's a property about 1 kilometre away. Do you think you can get him to that property, or we can bring the helicopter in? And I say, yeah, he seems okay. And I hang up from them, I tell Dad we've got to get to this property, he knows where the property is, and he says, give me your jumper, your sweater. And I take off my jumper, and he uses the sleeve of my jumper to stuff into a hole in his chest. I have to hold the jumper into his chest as I carry him back to where we've parked the truck. I put him in the passenger side, I run around to the driver's side, I start the truck up, and I can't drive a stick shift. And this is a big old truck with one of these things on the steering wheel. And all I do is I start it up, I grind it into a gear, and we bounce forwards and stop. And Dad screams in pain. I start it up again, I grind it to a different gear, and we bounce forwards and stop. And Dad screams again and then turns to me and says, "Get out." As I get out of the driver's side, I run around to the passenger side as Dad slides along the seat, leaving this trail of blood across the back of the seat, and drives himself to this property. Now, all they've told me to do on the emergency line is just to make sure that Dad stays awake, which is good now that he's driving. I'm driving, I'm saying, "Stay awake, Dad, stay awake." And by the time we get to this property, he's gone this sort of grey-blue color. And the helicopter is there. They land the helicopter. Dad gets loaded into the helicopter. I get in the helicopter, and we get taken to the mainland to hospital. For free, by the way. Going to hospital is free in every other country. If I can live here now, I don't have any health care. And we go to the hospital, and all I remember is my mum walking out of the surgery. I'm just sitting in this chair, and she says, "He's going to be okay. He's lost a lot of blood, and he has no collarbone anymore, but he's going to be okay." And she says, "He's okay for visitors now. Do you want to go and see him?" And I say, "Yeah, nah." But finally, my mum says, you need to go in and see him." And I go in, and Dad is just sitting in the bed, all bandaged up, and he says that thing again. "I hope you've learned something." But you know what? I think my dad learned something that day. That's that sometimes it is necessary for that kind of language. Also, I'll learn something 12 years later. I'm on Kangaroo Island visiting my brother, talking to a bunch of my dad's mates, and his mates say, "Yeah, we've all almost shot him a bunch of times because he bloody jumps in front of people when they're about to shoot something."
Oh my God. I think that was enough accent for me. It's probably too late for trigger warnings, but you know, I know Australians. Every other word is the F word, and I don't care. Oh my God. I got shot by a BB gun point blank range once, but my God. So that's obviously one of the ways he almost died. Yeah. There's a whole 1 hour show about all the different ways he's almost died, apparently. So, okay, deep breath here. I was worried where that was going to go when you shot him. Okay, our next teller is Andrew Dickson. He's a man of many creative talents. He's an auctioneer. I'm hoping he can give us a couple of quick lines, maybe. I don't know. We'll see how he feels. We don't have to pay extra for that, do we? Oh, never mind. He's a filmmaker. He spent much of his time in the realm of advertising as a copywriter and communications liaison, working with firms such as Wyden & Kennedy. He now freelances mostly as a copywriter, but occasionally as a creative director or commercial director through his own business. You know what you should do. Recent clients include Danner Boots, Apple, and Instrument. He loves it so much he recently launched Mr. Freelance, an online course and community to help fellow creative freelancers freelance more effectively. He also recently wrote a book, which I think he brought a few copies with him tonight, entitled Me and My Family and Me, which, as you guessed it, about family. He's also hosted over 100 of the Moth storytelling story slams and grand slams here that happen here in Portland and all over the country. If you have not been to any of those shows, you should definitely go. I guess tickets go almost instantly, so you got to be ready for them. He has completed and is working on some really cool projects. Check him out on his website, andrewdickson.com. There's some pretty good rabbit holes to go down for sure. Please welcome Andrew Dickson.
Monopoly is a terrible game. The entire point of it is to get so much property and amass so much wealth that you literally bankrupt your friends and family or who you're ever playing with and put them in the poorhouse. You leave them with nothing. That's the whole point of the game. And yet, I love Monopoly. It reminds me of my grandfather. I used to go visit him in Florida, and we would play it. And my son Everett loves Monopoly. And Everett's actually here, coming to his very first storytelling show. And what a show it's been. You having a good time, Everett? Yeah. He's 13 now. He's a great kid. He is smart. He's funny. He's opinionated. But he's definitely an introvert. If Everett doesn't have school or if he doesn't have a friend coming over, he could just like wake up, go down to the basement, play some video games, then he switches over to Lego, and then he reads. And if there's nothing else going on, he'll just repeat that 2 more times until it's like 10 o'clock at night and time to go to bed. Like that is his perfect day. And I noticed this pattern when he was 8. He was in 3rd grade, and more specifically, around March of 2020, right before he turned 9, when suddenly we all found ourselves in the middle of a global pandemic. And there was no school, there was no going out, there was no art shows, there was no going to the library, there was no storytelling shows. And you know, as much as that was a really scary time and a hard time, and for some of us a really painful time, Everett was built for it, because Everett could go down to the basement and do his things. And you know, initially there was no school at all. And then there was online school, and shout out to teachers who I think did a remarkable job of doing what they could, but it was not the same thing, right? And even when Everett had online school, it was like over by lunch, right? Which left a lot of basement time. So I think I was feeling so many things, but as a parent, you know, I felt for both of my kids like, God, they're missing out on learning, but also just on being around other kids, you know, just being around other people. And we have a situation where we weren't comfortable creating any kind of pod with another family, so it was just the 4 of us, right? So they weren't getting to see friends, and so that really bothered me, you know, and I wanted to sort of get Everett up out of the basement, and I sort of said, all right, I'm going to try to do something every day to engage him. And some days it was nice, we'd go for a walk and we'd have these great conversations, but if the weather didn't cooperate, you know, I'd go down to the basement. And I tried video games, I tried Lego, I ruled out reading because the problem with all of them is, you know, you start playing Lego together and you get down, like all of a sudden you're like trying to rebuild this fire station, then Everett's over here doing his thing with his minifigs, and you can go an hour and you're not even talking, you know, and same with video games. So one day, I was still working. I worked freelance, and I had I was lucky enough to still have clients and be working. So one day after his online school was over, I had a little lunch break. So I was like, games, like not video games, but games. So, and Everett loved Monopoly. So I was like, and I'd forgotten. So I go to the basement, like, Everett, you want to play Monopoly? And he'll say it like, he'll go, sure. And then he comes up. And so we sit down and, you know, we set it up and we play and we eat. And after about an hour, I'm like, you know, I'm pretty good. Like, I got to get back to work. So I'm like, hey, should we pick this up later? He's kind of like, we got to finish the game. And I'm like, well, you know, Everett, you got to remember, like, Monopoly can go several hours, right? So why don't we pick this up again at 5 when I'm done with work? He's like, come on, Dad. And, you know, in that moment where there was so much uncertainty, we knew this thing was going to go on for a while. And it was just, you know, I don't want to take you too far back into that moment, but I was like, what is important to me in this moment? Is it finishing these headlines for some banner ads and for some paid social media for my clients, or do I really want to spend this time with my kid? And so I was like, Everett, give me a minute. So I wrote a client, said, you know, I can't make the Zoom meeting, and I wrote another client, I need a little more time. And I said, all right, let's do it. So we sat there, and Everett and I played an entire game of Monopoly from start to finish. And all of a sudden, it's like 4:30, and I'm like, okay, I've got just enough time to finish, you know, get my work done. And he's like, you want to play again? And I'm like, you know what? Yes, just give me a minute. I got to get out of another Zoom meeting. I got to tell some clients they're not going to get their writing until the morning. And so we played a second entire game of Monopoly from start to finish. It was night by the time we were done. So the next morning I get up and I have a plan. I start work as fast as I can, and by early afternoon I'm done. No more Zoom meetings, like all my work's turned in. So I go down to the stairs to the basement, like, Everett, you want to play Monopoly? And again, sure. And I hear him running up the steps. And we play another game of Monopoly from start to finish. And the next day, and the next day. And we ended up playing Monopoly for 75 days in a row. 1 entire game, 2 if we were feeling it. And we may have stopped on day 76, but we picked right back up on day 77. And people are like, how did you have the time? And, you know, we weren't going anywhere, for starters. But it got to the point where I was actually turning down work if I needed to be on Zoom meetings all day. Or if I was going to have to be, you know, tethered to a Slack channel. I'm like, no, because also I wanted to hang out with my older kid and my wife too, so I needed time. So I made it. But the Monopoly games were, I just wanted to keep that streak alive. And the other thing, second of 3, we play that when you land on free parking, you get $500. Okay, there's a controversial rule. If you read the Hasbro instructions to the game, it expressly says this is not allowed. Nothing's supposed to happen when you land on free parking. It's just a free space. But the whole point, again, the only way to win Monopoly is to get enough properties that you can build hotels, that you can bankrupt everyone. And to do that, you need money. So putting the $500 on free parking, it shaves like an hour off the game. And then lastly, we got to the point where Everett was almost playing the game by himself, where he'd roll for him, he'd move his token, he'd do his action, and then he'd roll for me and then move my token, and then he had every single property value memorized. So if I land on Marvin Gardens with 2 houses, he'd be like, $320, and like before I'm even like giving him the money, he's already rolling and moving his own piece. We could play a game of Monopoly in like an hour. And I loved it because he was doing math, he was reading, you know, community chess, chance cards. He was doing that rote memorization that can be so important in elementary school. And then also we were having conversations. So sometimes he'd have the dice in his hand and he'd just be like, Dad, what's your favorite candy bar? And like we'd talk for like 5 or 6 minutes, and then when that was done, he'd like roll again. And the longer it went on, the questions became even better. Like, Dad, one day he was like, why did World War I start? And that was like a 15-minute conversation. So not only was he actually using his brain and thinking and learning, but we were spending these hours together and really connecting. And he was getting that socialization that I wanted him to get so badly. And you know, I think I've always thought of like this as me making this sacrifice. I was doing this great dad duty of spending time with Everett and like sacrificing my time and work to really play Monopoly with him. But I think just in the last couple of days, I kind of realized he would have been fine. Like a little online school, like hang out in the basement like the rest of the day. I was the one that needed to hang out with him and play Monopoly. I'm the extrovert. I was the one that was missing being on stage and like seeing friends and doing things. Like, so really Everett was the one that sacrificed his time for me. So thank you, Everett, and thank you all so much.
Everett, where are you? I didn't get to see you. You saved your father. Oh, that's great. What a nice story. I love Monopoly. I don't want to, well, every year at Christmas it comes up, Noah, the younger son, wants to play Monopoly. And it's like, no, because I want to finish the game. And I don't know how you finished one so fast like that. We played games when they were younger. My older son's here today, too. And we would be able to set it up where we could walk away and come back the next day. And sometimes it might take 3 days on and off to finish the game. But in the end, you did bankrupt somebody. So that was the important thing. Now, Christmas Eve, we play poker. The other famous capitalist game that my wife really dislikes, but she's really a good sport. And she plays along with Grandma and me and Noah and Ian. And it's great family time. So thank you, everyone, on that. Okay, it's our last teller. This show is, I'm going to say, this has got to be probably the best show ever. I mean,
I 100% agree.
Okay, you guys, I called for security earlier. I brought a few my own people in the crowd today, so they seem to think they can heckle, but. Okay, so our last teller is Frayn Masters. She's a performer, scriptwriter, copywriter, storyteller, story speech performance consultant. She's the creative, executive producer, and host of the Backfence live storytelling series, and was also a PDX producer and co-host for the Moth Grand Slam. She was voted Best Storyteller Spoken Word Artist for the 2015 Willamette Week's Best of issue. She's a woman who makes connections. What's that, Frayn? 10 years ago. I'm not, who's watching? I don't know what year it is. Yeah, I don't know what year it is. She's a woman who makes connections and helps people figure out what to do with their talents. I think it's safe to say she's one of the most important members of the storytelling community here in the metro area. Chances are, if there's something going on in the storytelling world, she is not far away. Oh, she's getting antsy over there. You're going to have to wait for me to finish. I've watched you on stage a number of times. Now it's my turn. Let me finish my accolades. Okay, no, you don't. No, it's not going to be that much longer. Chances are, if there's anything going on in the storytelling world, she's not far away, and it may or may not be stirring the pot and throwing in some spices to make it tasty. Frayn is the sauce that connects the whole dish together. She's always a delightful host, and I've been eager to see her perform in the spotlight as a featured storyteller. Never seen that. So I find it particularly delightful in the fact that she's going to be on our stage, and I get to introduce her. Please welcome Frayn Masters.
All right. Darshanpreet, I'm the youngest by far, so I don't have any of those skills, and this is what a story sounds like from somebody who is the youngest. All right. Here we go. Hey, Frayn. August has turned out to be a pretty busy month. I returned to the beach house on the 15th with guests, Alice, Mabel, and Denny D. We had a great time. I don't know who any of those people are. We dug clams, caught 4 crabs, and played a lot of bridge. We left Thursday p.m. for an overnight stay at Anacortes and caught the 8:15 a.m. ferry to Sydney, BC. We spent most of 2 days seeing the sights in Victoria. The weather was fantastic. We returned to the hill about 11:30 p.m. after dinner at the Olive Garden. That is a late dinner at the Olive Garden. Alice and Mabel left for Yakima about 10 a.m. this morning. Today, I am about 90% packed for the Alaska fishing trip. I think I have all the shutdown tasks done, like having the post office hold mail, suspend newspaper delivery, water the tomatoes and the squashes. Tomorrow, I play golf with Marjorie's brother Al. Don't know who those people are. Wednesday is launch day for Alaska at 4:45 a.m., returning on the 29th at 7:50 p.m. How's that for keeping busy? Love, Dad. That is the sweet slide rule pentameter, hydraulics and pneumatics engineer poetry of my father. And I can tell you honestly that I have at least 50, if not 100 emails that have that same exact cadence of precise numbers and order. And you'll note in that email from my father that never once does he say, "Hey, how are you?" Or "What are you doing?" I wonder how we're from the same sperm. Well, not the same sperm. I'm from his sperm, which might be the same sperm, but that's a different poem for a different time. In the household growing up, we were like 2 cats circling each other who were slightly pissed at each other all the time. I could never, ever make the orange juice to his specifications. And it's astonishing to me that I lived under his roof for 17 years, and then we had many years after that together. And yet, all the times that we sat across from each other or next to each other when we would ride to the dump together, which was my favorite thing to do with my dad, we're going to the dump, I'm in. You don't know where you'll find the joy. But I would sit across from him at the dinner table all those years. He was a very handsome man. He was tall, and he had a shock of white hair. He was nearly 50 when I was born, so he always had white hair to me. And steel blue eyes, and he was always perpetually tan. I burn next to a 70-watt bulb. And he passed away not that long ago, and I still always wonder, like, when those times, you know, when you want to have a conversation with your dad and things burble up and you're so close to saying them, there's almost like this emotional bile in your mouth. And yet we could never get out to each other like, hey, I love you, or even lower stakes, you mean something to me. Or maybe a question like, who are you? We could just never get there. And so he didn't pass that long ago. And I could stand here and I could tell all the prickly, brambly, sharp-edged stories about him. But in that time since he's died, I've been thinking, like, could I find more connection with him? Could I, like, Nancy Drew my past and find these moments that I'd skipped over where we were very connected to each other? Could I find connection with my dead dad? So, I just like ate the microphone there for a minute. This is the first Nancy Drew case. Here we go. It is the case of the zig that meets the zag. So, I just had graduated from an uneventful second grade, and my parents and my brother, who's closest to me in age but is still 9 years older and very grumpy, we go to Mexico City, where my godparents live, for their daughter's wedding. Of course, Catholics, right? And so my dad, of course, as you now probably have ascertained, has a very specific itinerary for this trip. So we're going to be at this Mexican wedding all day in Mexico City, but as soon as the wedding is done, we are going to go to Acapulco. Okay, so we have this amazing time at this mariachi wedding. There's colors everywhere. There's singing, there's dancing, there's tequila. There's a taco that's not from Taco Time, and it's so much better. It's my first time out of the U.S., and none of us want to leave this beautiful place to go to Acapulco at 7 p.m., and then it starts torrentially raining, like atmospheric rain, and there's lightning, and there's thunder, and we are still in the car at 7 p.m. We are going to go for 5 hours, 235 miles. 2 people in the car in front of us, my godparents. 5 people following. It is my dad driving, my mom in the co-pilot seat, Grumpy Michael on my left, and who's the surprise 5th guest? It is Paco. And I don't know why Paco is with us. But I can tell you, even at 8, I saw that he was a stone-cold fox. So we are barreling towards Acapulco, and I, from being always a nervous passenger in a car, and with this thunder and lightning happening, I was even more scared. And I had overheard my godmother say to my dad, keep in mind, she is from Mexico, and she says to my dad, Ed, the roads are narrow. The curves are blind. There are drop-offs next to the road, and it's going to get dark on our trip. And my dad looks at her and he says, time's ticking. So that's right, we keep going. So we're barreling towards Acapulco on these very scary roads with all this lightning and thunder and rain pouring down on the car. Paco and my brother, who are about the same age, took advantage of a lot of tequila, so they're out. My mom falls asleep as soon as the car starts moving, and I am ocho, so I'm also nodding off. And as I'm nodding off, I'm sleeping, and the next thing I know, I'm being pushed to the right to the left towards my brother Michael. I'm just being shoved right into him, and then slowly I start moving to the right towards Paco, and then back again, and everything slows down, and all the air sucks out of the car because we are spinning on the road. And in my mind, I can see a hospital, and I see doctors in white coats and nurses rushing around, and that thing happens that people talk about, which is my life starts to flash before my eyes, except I'm 8, so it repeats itself. And we're spinning, and then all of a sudden, we head down an embankment. So we're all now nosediving down this embankment, right? And the rocks are huge. They're like 3 and 4 inches in diameter. And we're heading down towards a giant ravine that we can see in front of us through the headlights. And we're bouncing. And because my dad's a hydraulics and pneumatics engineer, he knows you have to pump the brakes as you're going down. Because if you hit them hard, you'll just keep sliding into the ravine. So he pumps the brakes. Nobody's saying anything because how could you? And we stop. Suddenly we just stop. And nobody still says anything. And the rain is just coming down on the car. And in front of us, the headlights, you can see the ravine. We are feet from the ravine. And my dad has his foot on the brake. And he says, so composed, nobody say anything. Nobody move. We have to balance the car to get out of here. And so he has to keep his foot on the brake because when you pull up on a parking brake, it rocks a car. And the car is not steady. It is like moving while we're doing all this. And so he says to my mom, slowly slide towards your door. And on the count of 3, we're going to open our car doors slowly together. So that happens. They slowly open them together, and now you can really hear the rain coming down. And my dad says to my mom, you're going to get out, and you're going to get on your hands and knees, and you're going to crawl up the embankment on your hands and knees because the rocks are very, very unsteady. And we are in vacation clothes. We are in shorts and flip-flops. This is not ideal for this situation whatsoever. So my mom gets out, and she does that. And then my dad says to my brother Michael, you're going to slowly open your door now, and you're going to do the same thing. So he does. He slowly opens his door, and he gets down on his hands and knees, and he makes his way up. So now they're up on top of where the road is that we left behind us, and it takes a while to get up there. We went down a little ways. And my godparents had seen the spinning headlights, and so they had come back. And so once my brother and my mom were up there, my godfather, they lived in Mexico, so he was like, I'm going to go ahead, and I'm going to try to find a tow truck driver that I can wake up in the middle of the night and come back. And so now it is me, my dad, and Paco in the car together, and my dad says, okay, Paco, it's your turn. And so Paco slides over, he opens up his door, and he gets out. And now it's just me and my dad in the car. And those headlights are staring down at a 750-foot ravine, which my dad would say is also 55 stories. And the car is lighter now. And keep in mind, he's had his foot on the brake for probably a solid 40 minutes at this point. And he says, hey, squirt, which is what he called me, which is so gross, especially since I mentioned sperm earlier. He says, hey, squirt, okay, you're gonna slide over and you're gonna get out of the car. And this is my first time in a super high tension situation, and your body doesn't move the same. Like, I just been frozen, petrified in this center while this is all going on, staring down at this ravine. And so I just kind of felt weak as I was moving over, and it was really hard to move over. And I start to get out of the car, and I realize why he told everybody to crawl is because you don't want to lose your balance, because if you lose your balance and fall back on the door, you're going to send my dad into a ravine. And by the way, I don't want to kill my dad in this moment. So I get out and I do it. I crawl up, and and it's very scary because as you're crawling, the rocks roll behind you, and they do that thing where they roll off the edge and into the ravine, and then you hear them fall for way too long. And I get up to the edge with everyone else, and 2 hours later, my godfather comes back with a tow truck. So now my dad has had his foot on the brake for about 3 hours, and he's just been down there by himself for like almost 2 hours. And the tow truck hooks up to the back of the car, and it brings the car up to the side of the road. And then we're only about 45 minutes from Acapulco at this point, which is thankfully. And so we all get back in the car that almost murdered us. And we drive to Acapulco, and we get to the hotel. And lest you think that nearly dying and being off schedule should change an itinerary, no. We were at breakfast at 7 a.m. the next morning, all of us. And it was the opposite of the night before. It was bright and sunny, and there were blue skies, and we were surrounded by birds of paradise. And I was drinking guava juice for the first time. And as I sat there, it was just, even at 8, I was like, wow, the line between life and death is insane. And as I Nancy drew this experience, I can see how my dad was born for this moment. His calmness, his calculations, and his compassion saved us all. He was going to go down with the ship if necessary. And so it's in that moment that I can feel in my bones my dad's hydraulics and pneumatics poetry, and how beautiful it is, and how that's his way of showing love to me. Thank you.
Oh, man. That was fantastic. That's harrowing. Yeah. Probably. Oh, wow. We need a sound that you make when you want more story, more.
Here, maybe both rattles at the same time.
Yeah.
Try.
Yeah, well, I didn't tell them that they might have to come up for an encore, so we can't ask them to do that. That was incredible.
It was a cliffhanger, literally.
Yeah. Yes. I'm so glad that you're here to tell the tale. Well, okay, we're not completely done yet. We have a raffle to do, but I really want to thank the tellers. I would like them, if they are feeling up to it, to come back up on stage and all stand together and just kind of take a group bow, please. Oh, and tellers, we had a big ethical debate last year about whether tellers could be entered in the raffle, and it was decreed that they could. So I think we need to get 6 tickets. Do we have, are any of our, oh, Marie's come. Oh, Marie, this is a quality volunteer for you. She's already here with the tickets. Oh, how about a big round for our volunteers? Marie, Roger, and Daryl's back there. Well, thank you so much. That was great. You guys are amazing. I don't know if we can ever top this, but a special thanks to Frayn. She's really, like I said, it's true. She's a connector. She connected me with Andrew and Travis and Darshanpreet. Brian, I harvested myself, and Jon. Where's Jon? Oh, damn it. You know, that we had comedians last year, and it was a night show, and they were all like, they had another show to do, and they were like here and told, and boom, gone. So we thought we'd try a matinee this year because people don't like to drive at night, and I don't know if the sun, who cares what happened? You all got lucky. Give them a big round of applause, please. Okay, go get your tickets. Did you? You can go. You can go sit back unless you want to keep standing there. So let's talk about what they might win, Anne. What's behind curtain number whatever?
You're welcome.
We have we have two $15 gift certificates to the Book Corner, which is our used bookstore, and you get a lot for $15 over there. High quality used library materials.
And it supports the library.
Supports the library, supports things like this. And we also have a set of 4 tickets to Elephant and Piggy, which is a kids show here in the, oh my God, can we put the fix in? If you win, it's going to look suspicious. So that's, I believe there's a show run sometimes in the spring for that. I don't have the dates, but if you want that, you can choose that. We're just going to read a number, and then if that number is yours, you can choose the prize. And then the other thing we have is Frayn has graciously agreed to offer a pair of tickets to what will be the next upcoming roulette show. And do we have a date yet, or are you still... Ooh, March 16th.
Ooh.
Okay, good to know. So, you know what? I should probably go. Can people see their tickets? Do I need to go turn on a light? Okay. All right, let's just give it a try without the lights. All right, Anne.
Okay. The first number is 446644. Do we have a winner? No. It ends in it's 446644.
Ends in 44.
Woo, yeah.
Who? Oh my God, the heckler one? What? Oh, okay. So what are you going to choose? Used books? Wow, I would have gone for the back fence. Who's reading? Oh, who's getting the roulette?
Okay.
Oh, okay. Oh, you were joking about the used books. He's going to roulette. It's 2 tickets. You could take me. Okay. All right, what's next?
Okay.
Roulette's gone. We're down to Elephant and Piggy.
Okay, we have 446689.
8-9. Uh-oh. That must be John's ticket.
Okay. Okay, I think they're all 4466. So the last 2 numbers are 29.
2-9. There's a lot of eager people out here, but no one's shouting out.
Okay, how about 57?
5-7, okay.
All right. We have
Elephant and Piggy or Book Corner? Elephant and Piggy. All right. Are you going to Elephant and Piggy, or are you going to take some children to Elephant and Piggy? Way to cover up
so generous.
way to cover it up. I like that's election rigging 201. All right. Okay. I've met their kids. Their kids are so wonderful.
Okay, our next number is 76. Okay.
All right, somebody. right, $15 at the book corner. You can do a lot of damage with that. Oh, wait, there's only one more number you're leaving. It could be your number. Wait. Read one more number. Wouldn't that be funny if it was your number?
The final number is 34.
Okay, have a great night. 3-4.
6-3.
6-3. That's you? Oh. Okay, he is my brother-in-law, but there's no... Oh, and by the way, cash the you-know-what check. Otherwise, I'm going to come over there. I'm going to stuff the cash into your garter belt. Long story. Involves a sale of a car. He's notorious for giving things away and not cashing checks. All right. Wow, that went really fast. Thanks so much for coming. I mean, what an amazing show.
That was an amazing show.
Yeah. We do open mic storytelling here, usually a couple times a year. If you want to give it a try and you want to get on the email list, if you're not on it already, please don't sign up again. Get on the list and probably be May or June. We haven't picked a date yet, but we usually do a travel theme, and those are always fun stories. So sign up for that. Come to the Reeser next Saturday. You might get free samples of some kind of psychedelic at the thing. I don't know. Again, that's all unconfirmed. But anyway, thanks so much for coming. Have a great afternoon, and hopefully we'll see you next year.